Wonderful. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Josh Barney. I am the CEO of the SEAT Conference, which some of you may have heard of. And then yesterday, actually, I just shared this with those guys. I was given pleasant news from the States that I've just been awarded a charity that we've applied for. So we now have an official charity called the Joshua Tree Project. So, here on the stage with me, I've got two fabulous individuals that I've had a few years of experience interacting with here. I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves here.
Hi everybody, my name is Catherine Downs. I'm one of the co-founders and COO of Usheru. I've met so many of you over the past few days, so probably don't need to introduce. Usheru has been around for 10 years. We've been in the movie industry all that time, but we came in very serendipitously into the sports venue industry in the US mainly in the past 3 years. So we're very much entertainment, lots of crossover between the two industries. We build digital software destinations for movie promoters and also for arenas, sports groups and stadium. We're mainly operating in the US, and which is quite funny because we're an Irish origin company, so we're going backwards, but yeah, things are going good. We just actually signed a first arena also in Costa Rica, so really excited about that as well. Thank you, Josh.
Well, good afternoon. I think it's afternoon. My name's Geoff Wilson. So my background, I worked for the Irish Football Association. I've gone now freelance. So I work for the likes of UEFA, FIFA, FIBA in World Basketball, Euro Volleyball, Saudi Pro League, which is an interesting topic. I'm not the sharpest tool in the box, that's for sure, but I've been to 101 countries doing sport, and when you've been to 101 countries, you get that experience. So yeah, so for me, it's not the brain power; it's maybe just the experience.
Well, experience pays off in amounts here. So with our topic that we have around the fan experience journey and that, what was it that got you two excited about being a part of kind of that element of what we have inside of venues? What was it about fan experience that pushed you to that?
Well, I'll speak mainly, and actually, Geoff, I was looking at what you do this week, and I was like, I can think of many people that need your help. So basically, we were very much just looking at the digital touch points. We build that the destination, which is the website of an arena. We work with Climate Pledge Arena, UBS Arena in the US, lots of different arenas across the US market. I think the thing that's most interesting and which we would love to see more is we work with our partners, but we really only work with the marketing team, and we don't work with the operations team or necessarily the ticketing team, and we'd love to see all that more integrated. I think the technology that's here now can do so much. Digital technology can do so much to give you data that gives you an idea, but we're all still human, so I think they're indicators to give people the best experience, to deliver the message, the communications, to help them. But it's not everything. I think Robert was saying that yesterday from SSE Arena. It's not everything because it's still an experience, but the data and the digital touch points make people's lives easier in many ways. And I think that's really exciting because I think there's so much opportunity out there still.
Yeah, for me, a lot of the work I do is with either sports federations, leagues or clubs, and most of it would be strategic planning, so developing a strategic plan. And as you started to go through and develop a strategic plan, you're almost then saying, operationally, what does that look like? So you end up going to games, be that in a venue or be that in a stadium. And the amount of times I went to these venues and thought, what a terrible experience. So really on the back of doing the strategic work, I started to get a lot more involved in, well, what is that experience like? Why can't we learn from the corporate side and take that into the sports element, and then also, things that are sportized? How do we make that experience great? Because I want sneezers. When somebody sneezes on me, I get the flu. So I want a positive sneezer to go and let other people see the experience, so that when that experience is great, they tell other people how great an experience it was, and that drives them not only to come back, but also to tell other people that they should enhance. I'm a firm believer in it's got to be digital and, face-to-face, as well. So how do we make that experience wow, not just okay? So gone are the days of serving just an okay hamburger. Those days have gone, or they should be gone, but they're not. So how do we improve that overall experience? That's how I got involved, mainly from looking at it from a strategic point of view to then how do we make the experience better?
I have a question for you on this, because you go in at the high level of an organisation and you're looking across everything. Who do you think should own that fan journey and experience? Because you can go into a strategy team but they haven't necessarily convinced the CEO yet.
Yeah, a great question. So I went to Orlando City, and I went and did the experience, the Orlando City activity. So I went online, got my ticket, really simple, really quick, fantastic. I got an email to say, here's what you can bring into the stadium, here's when the march to the stadium, brilliant information, fantastic. I downloaded the app, lots of content in there, lots of practical where do I park?
Yeah.
All of that was in there. Then I went to the stadium, brilliant getting access in, brilliant entertainment, all of that was fantastic. The food was great, the merchandising was great. And then I went to leave, I got out, great. I went to the car park and I was 2 hours in the car park.
Yeah.
And for me,
it destroyed everything.
It destroyed everything else, and I blamed Orlando City. Now, Orlando City would say, but that's the car park people. And in my mind, so to answer your question, no. You need to sort out that experience, because now I'm telling it to these people how that experience had been negative.
Yeah.
And I blame Orlando City. Yeah. Now, some people might say, well, what if it's outside of their control? But are they just okay to say, somebody else's problem?
Yeah.
And for me, no, you have to own that whole journey, which is difficult to do.
So in this case, who do you think should own it? Like the CEO, the MD? Like ideally that would be the case, that they would care that much,
Yeah, I think when it comes to CEO, it all depends on the strategy and the drive that they're doing, because many CEO and CEOs might be focused on other areas, i.e. on-field success.
Yeah.
Other ones might be more focused on the fan experience, or indeed community engagement. So a lot depends on that individual and where their heartbeat is for them. For me personally, it has to be owned by the leadership, and therefore it's got to be owned by the board. Yes. And the board then down to the chief executive and further down, and therefore that becomes culture.
Yeah.
But that's just my thoughts.
No, I agree.
No, I think that goes in heavily to what I've been seeing over in the States is there's now positions identified as the chief experience officer, and all those groups, IT, marketing, all of them kind of funnel up, and those events are coordinated through that role now. And I think it's important for that to be that. And we had kind of talked, previous to this, I feel like a lot of this needs to resonate to the why of the organization. That was actually brought up in a couple sessions ago on why do you do what you do. And I've brought up again that I think it's important for us to really know that and know our fans that way, so that we can give them that experience that resonates with them to keep them coming back.
Totally agree. For me, 3 things if you want to take away. Have you a clear vision? Have you a clear meaning for your purpose, the mission? And what are your values? Now, years ago, I went, values? What's that all about? In all the countries that I've been to, those standout organizations have got a clear vision, a clear reason for their existence, and fundamentally clear values that they live by. Yeah. And that's so important, not just to have values, but they actually action them. There's a local club here, Bohemians, which most people will know here. And they have clear values. Yeah. Whether you agree with them or not, they have clear values that they implement. And that means that me as a fan, I like those values, so therefore I'm going to give you my heart as a fan to that club, because your values are my values. So they're living out. So to me, those are three key things that need to happen, especially in a club. The fourth, I might say, would be community.
Yeah.
But that's for another day.
No, it's interesting you say that, because I think if you have those values, even the most junior person in the organisation can think independently and make decisions. If they interact with a customer, that they do the right thing according to the organisation. But without that, then, well, people don't do bad things, but they don't make decisions. And I think that's where that whole journey or all the interactions can go wrong. Yeah.
Balls are sold out every game.
Oh.
Yeah, I brought Bohemians to Estonia last year.
Did you? Yeah.
And we were with the Estonian FA to try and, with their clubs, how do we increase the community reach of the Estonian clubs and learn from, in this case, Bohemians. And their story is just amazing. And whether you like Bose or not, their story and how they did it, and if anybody, come and chat to me, what they were, the position they were 10 years ago to where they are now is transformational. But how they did it, very, very clear in terms of they had a plan, but they got good people in place, clear values, clear all the other elements that go with it, and they haven't won a trophy in a long while, which is another thing. So it's not all about winning.
Yes.
You remember, in League of Ireland, I think there's 12 clubs. If you focus on winning, there's 11 of them going to be very disappointed.
So actually, Geoff, I was chatting to Josh earlier about the League of Ireland, because I went to my first League of Ireland match in Croke Park. It was Shelbourne against Bowes about a month ago, 6 weeks ago. And as we say, I was saying to Josh earlier, a lot of what we talk about are these kind of like the very hyped, optimal fan journeys that you can have, which are like, very sophisticated venues, sophisticated tech. But we went to this match, we went into a very, down and dirty pub before, walked down the road, the atmosphere was amazing. Brought my 5-year-old, my father, and my husband. So it was like, a few generations. My husband's from Mexico, and he was like, the atmosphere is so authentic. Like, the place was electric. There wasn't a seat in the house. We went to the family zone, which I thought was going to be all chilled out and relaxed. But the bands in there were avid now. It's really amazing. There's like a groundswell happening. And I don't know, like when you talk about the fan journey, when they're at such a different level, like a lot of the arenas we work with, like Climate Pledge or UBS, they're just operating on a different level. If you've got Croke Park, it's 5,700 or so, I think. What would you advise them? Like, how do you build your foundation for the fan journey there? Well,
for me, so I was very fortunate. With the experience, I've created a fans journey model.
Yeah.
And that fans journey model, and I don't know if anybody's done this, but I would suggest you do this. Actually, do the touch points for your business. Have you actually got somebody to go onto your website? You think, my website's brilliant. Have you actually got a customer to give you feedback on the website? So that's just one touch point. Imagine all the rest, which includes after sales. What are those touch points and how do you make them brilliant? So I would suggest, if you think this is an interesting conversation, write that down. Identify all my touch points, and that's what we did with the fans journey model. We looked at everything from buying a ticket, buying merchandise, buying food and beverage, going to the game, outside the stadium, pre-game, during the game, post-game, leaving the stadium. And we then put together a range of things that needs to happen in each of those touch points. And then what we said, these are the must-haves, and this is the wow factor. And you need to have a wow factor in your touch points, because that's what will make you stand out. So what are your touch points and what are your wow factors? And what you do, you rate them out of 10. Yeah. You rate them out of 10, and you get several people to do that to see where you're at. Very interesting experience. When I was at the Irish FA doing some online e-commerce, I did it and I thought, this is brilliant. And then I gave it to an external person and they said it was rubbish. It was 9 steps. Yeah. Well, I could have cried. Yeah. But the person was right. Why? Because Amazon doesn't want 9 steps.
Yeah, they
and
want
that's what people
3 max.
and this is so. sorry to go on, but we're okay to serve okay hamburgers. Hands up, who wants to eat a rotten burger? But we're okay to serve it. That's not good enough. It's not good enough. If we go and we're as a staff member and somebody grunts at you on where to go, that's not good enough. So we've got to be better at each of these touch points, and that includes people, training, processes, technology, all of that.
I was actually, because we do a lot of the mapping, but we really, we're very much on the digital side, so we map the user journey into their website to understand where they go, how do they get alerted to events, how can they build online communities actually with their local arena, base, or who travels here, who are they. But actually, one of the things that we always find is, if it's not connected to the other parts of the business, and actually, well, someone I've met and interacted with a lot, a really good guy here, John Morello, who's chatting later, his company does the feedback after, really like comprehensive feedback about the customer experience from their position, they're literally their seat at an arena or a stadium, getting amazing data, but like in general, that's not been fed back very well into, even the marketing side of things.
Totally, and just to finish off, we call fans fans. A fan will always be a fan, always.
Yeah.
But imagine if you're an organisation and you say you're not a fan, you're a guest. You're a guest, like what Disney
or
does.
Hospitality then, yeah.
Well, if you came to my house, I would cut my hair, I would put on good clothes, I would have good food, I would have entertainment. Why? Because you're a guest in my house.
Yeah.
So why don't the sports world think of the fan as a guest? The fan will always be a fan.
Yeah.
But treat the person like a guest. There's a reason why Disney is, okay, they've gone through a bit of a blip, but there's a reason why Disney's successful. They don't have, here's customer service. They have,
you're part of the family.
it's a guest service.
Yeah, it really is all.
I spent 12 years in the NBA with the Utah Jazz, and I was over the Delta Center and the technology there on my time with the team. And there's a lot of teams and clubs and venues that send their employees to Disney to learn the Disney experience.
Philosophy,
so that they can take that, bring it back. And the first thing that they do is forget the fact that the first couple lines that people have in this fan journey involves people that may be part-time workers, that might not be a part of the vision that we had talked about. And that's one of those things in this fan journey modeling, you really do need to sit down and think about every step along the way, and not just for what you would say is, just your default kind of guest. But you've got to think about those with accessibility needs. You've got to think about those who experience your venue differently. And all of those things have to be looked at so that you don't have fans falling off because of the difficulty in managing the website.
I think
or anything.
that's like you mentioned, that's huge around accessibility. I think it was Claire Harkness from CBS Arena, I don't know if she's still here, talking about that earlier. I think she mentioned to us separately about having sensory spaces or other, like really putting accessibility at the front, because I know at this point in time, I can think of 5 friends who have one maybe child in their family with some kind of maybe sensory issue or neurodivergent issue or an accessibility issue, whether it's hearing or sight, and they decide where they go based on how stress-free that experience can be. So they often make decisions not to go places because they're like, that was not good for our family. So I think it's actually good for business, because I think there's a whole other range of like a whole other group that are not really included in these experiences that would take part if they felt like there weren't obstacles to them to being a part of it, for sure.
A word that we've talked about here, that fans, and I've told you both, one of the things that I appreciate from being from the other side of the pond is the word that you use in supporter. You're a supporter of that club. And over where I'm from, we call it fans. And I think that there's a cognitive difference between those two words, because you're creating something with a lot of these clubs. You brought up Bose. That club has built something where people truly do feel a part of it. and their team operates within the community. They do service within the community. There's all those touch points that make that important to where it resonates with the fans. Where I'm from right now, a big thing that everybody gets to see is Welcome to Wrexham. There are some things that, as a casual observer watching it, they do things that resonate heavily with me, and it's made me where I'm a fan of, the club that way. From the standpoint of kind of where this is, you brought up Bose. From projects that you've been involved in, what are some clubs or venues that you've had experience with that have done things good, right, and are in the right trajectory?
So I'll give 2 quick examples. I was very fortunate. I went to Qatar to the World Cup, and we had a whole team of us went through the likes of the journey model. We agreed the touch points, what we were looking for in each touch point, and how we were grading it. And what we found is, like, for example, the transportation, even though it was all run by artificial intelligence and there was no driver on the train, which freaked me out, getting to the stadium, the people, the volunteers, they were well trained. It was all fantastic. Where the experience started to go down was when you started to get into the actual venue and outside the venue, and that's what happens quite often. So we identified different areas where, for example, the fan zone, the music, the entertainment, at half-time, the entertainment before was very good. How you get out was very good, but that bit when you're there, in the case of football, they could improve. Now, what we don't want to do is we've got to keep our culture. So what works in America might not work here. So you've got to keep your culture, and I would say that many times when I go to different countries. But I'll not go into any more detail, but it was really exceptional in terms of the volunteers and how that touch point, because they made the tournament come alive. Second one had been to Pennybunt. If anybody knows Pennybunt, so Pennybunt is in Wales, and they're actually top of the Welsh league at the minute. And the reason why I bring Pennybunt is because it's grassroots football. So totally different experience, totally different value in terms of what money they can put into the experience. But there's a homely welcome. You're almost nearly given a big kiss when you come in. And it's a different experience that's related to Pennybunt. And again, that was all around that community experience. So because they had a different values, the experience was slightly different, but the touch points were the same. So whether you're community or whether you're at a big, massive event, the touch points will be the same. It's what you do within the touch points and how you make them come alive. We did a report for them, and they're now implementing that. Why? Because they want one person to say to 20, you should go. They don't want one person saying to 50, don't go.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to really get across, that sort of mentality. And that's not easy, because a lot of it is down to technology, processes, people. Because people will make that experience and the brand come alive.
Yeah. I think there's also just so much, with those experiences, there's so much nuts and bolts communication that has to happen well. I was telling Josh about this earlier as well, there's a really good event, it's called EVMC, Events Venue Marketing Conference in the US. We went to this in June, there's one, I think it's in Atlanta next year. It's real grassroots, it's marketers from arenas and stadiums all over the US coming together to share ideas. The amount of attention they have to put into the know before you go email, to make a frictionless experience, for example. It's something so simple, and understanding then, the different cultures that may be living in the US or living somewhere don't act the same as everybody in that market. So I was saying to Josh earlier, a lot of our ideas they're like the optimal Anglo-based view of how this will work, but then Latinos behave in totally different ways, bring a lot of food with them in bags, and don't read emails that come to their inbox before. So it's like, how can you reach out to those parts of the community prior to an event to make sure that all that information is really getting out there? It's really tough to do.
It is. One of the things we did in Malaysia was with the Malaysia Football League.
Yeah.
And we went to a game.
Yeah.
And what was Malaysian about them was street food.
Yeah.
And they had a whole area of street food. Well, I could have spent the time there before, and that's what we did. The music was going.
The start.
It was all their
Yeah,
culture.
yeah.
It was their food, their music, and there was pizzazz. It was a wow.
Yeah.
That really enjoyed that experience, like a mini festival before you actually went into the stadium. Another one really simple, as I went up to the Etihad in Man City. Now you would expect this, but they had one person with a t-shirt and a ball, but that person was trained. That person seen me coming and my son, and then went and said, first of all, you're very welcome to the Etihad. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it was a bit of a delight moment.
And it was.
Yeah,
and then they sat the ball down and just played football with my son, because they knew the experience that my son was having. I was living that as well, and we just played football. And we went back into the stadium straight after that. That cost a t-shirt and a ball. But in that little experience, it was a wow factor. And I'm still talking.
Yeah, I was saying you're telling everybody this, and this is.
So we call that
Word
a core memory. That's one of those things. And one of the things that I always found interesting is we would talk about who our average season or our average ticket person is. 55-year-old white male business owner. That's who we did. And it always baffled me that we were building experiences around who was the person who bought the ticket and not who they brought with them.
Yeah.
And we really should be thinking about building our experiences for an 8-year-old boy, a 12-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Somebody who will be the upcoming generation, to give them that need and the want to come back. Because it is that stuff that I've taken my kids to tons of these events, and there'll always be something that has no relationship to what actually happened on the court, the pitch, or whatever. But it was that other moment where they were like, oh, do you remember where we were, it was the Jazz Bear. Do you remember when Jazz Bear came by and sprayed us with silly spray?
Yeah.
All these little things that are what kind of encapsulate what's happening inside of the venue.
Yeah, one other example is Chicago Bulls. Anybody seen Benny? Benny from Chicago Bulls as a mascot?
No, I'll be honest.
This guy has created a personality for the mascot. And go and check it out. But again, really, they have what's unique to them, and they have now created a persona around that. And every time he's engaging with the people and doing different things and entertainment and all the rest of it. So again, my thoughts to you, no matter what business you're in, whether you're in sport or in technology, do a review of the customer touch points, or as I would say, the fan or guest. Do that review. Look to see what am I looking to do in each of those, and get 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people to do a review of it out of 10. Be very interested to see, because remember, if they see that there's bits that you think are good and they're not good, that's got to be good for your business. So improve it, and that will be good. That makes your business a bit of a wow business.
We've kind of talked through some successes and some of the challenges in that. For the looking ahead piece of this, where can, like when we talk about something to take home, what are some of the easy steps that are scalable for these folks to take back to their organization? If they're not doing customer journey modeling right now, what are those steps that they can take to kind of help move them forward?
Yeah, one thing, and it's been mentioned a few times, the lady, I can't remember her name, Bevan, I remember, Heaven, rhymes with Heaven, Bevan, yesterday, and she just, it's a trend about these kind of more accessible premium upgrades in arenas, and she mentioned it yesterday really well. It was like, people buy their ticket and people are willing to make a minor investment to an upgrade. This is very different from who you were going after, say, in your Utah Jazz days. We work with CFG Bank Arena in Baltimore, and they developed 2 new beautiful kind of social premium clubs, which they launched, but probably they weren't thinking totally about this as an e-commerce journey, because essentially the ticket has been bought and people they're provided, like, adding on to it. They were trying to get the word out about the clubs to, the local radio, and there's some kind of like advertising specialists we work with in the US. They said the model is still very much the local newspaper, the local radio, and like get the word out. But our approach was, but you actually know who's coming target all those people. And she mentioned this yesterday. She was like, I think she said like 15 to 20% of people are willing to part with a bit more cash for a little bit more looks for themselves and to enjoy it. And I think that is something that becomes more important to people, to create that party atmosphere that will entice, you know, into sports, particularly younger people into it. We'll get people to the venues earlier before an event. I mean, I remember going to lots of concerts when I was young, and I wasn't going to the venue earlier, I was going somewhere cheaper with my friends before that. But if you can get people into those experiences early, you can wow them with those moments and really make a big difference. I think that's probably an important part. I think families as well, and accessibility. These are kind of opportunities to unlock audiences. There's a lot, we're in the movie industry as well. I hear it now in this industry in the past 3 years about like younger audiences. How are we going to get younger audiences? But you hit, I don't know if you hit your nail on the head. Is it just that the purchaser isn't young? Because do we really have a profile of who everyone else is? And that's really getting to know your customer to know, okay, do I actually have an issue here, or is it just that the person paying is the person that can afford to pay, not necessarily representative of everybody there?
And I think that's another reason why when you go to Disney, they have each member who's there with their own little band, so that there's an identifier for where they're moving around and all of that. You gain data on everybody, not just the person who bought the tickets.
Yeah, and we're big into finding ways to build first-party data. I think Horse Racing Ireland, Vicky there earlier was talking about, you know, competitions. It's something very simple, but if you can provide something that's like a, you know, money can't buy, something small, a signed jersey, whatever, to, you know, to try to like bring people in, get them initially maybe into a mailing list, then try to build an online community and build that up bit by bit, because you can't force people to give you their data. It's meaningless because you wanted to market to them online, but if they feel like the methods by which you garnered it isolate them or annoy them, they'll just unsubscribe, and then, you know, you've kind of wasted your time. So I think you have to build it in a kind of a long, organic way. I worked in Google actually for 7 years before that. You can't buy traffic, because good traffic that lasts a lifetime and returning users and returning visitors and fans come from building organically with a long-term view. Yeah. Always, and I think that's the only way to do it.
Yeah, I think for me to take away is identify the touch points, what you're looking for in each touch point. Do the research. Just go and do it. You will be surprised what comes back. Just go and do the research. And then the third thing I would say is train your people. Train the people, if it is in customer service, etc., etc. For me, and I totally agree, I think technology. For me, I think in the future, we will all have a chip in our body. For me, I'm convinced that chip will, as you go more beacon technology, we're getting more connected already, that will force to you everything from your health, to your passport to get into a country, to your ticket into an event. And when you do that, when you see a goal scored, you will know what your heart rate is, but also you will know that your hamburger that you like with tomato sauce and with no pickles is available by just hitting click. How do they know that? Because your chip with all of the technology will be forcing that to you and into your device. So for me, that's where it'll go really into personalization in the future. But before we get there, and I've wrote an article about it, but that's another thing. Before we get there, do the simple things. And they are, identify your touch points. What are you looking to measure? Go do the actual research on each touch point and train your staff. Staff, so important.
Yeah, I think the last thing I'll say, which just links what you say, having worked in Google for 7 years, I saw a lot of technology. Some of that hasn't come to fruition even yet, because the public's acceptability of technology will move at the pace that the public wants it to move. You'll always have innovators that will accept things quickly, but even remember, we tapped our phones and the limit was 30 or was 10, 15, and now it's like, what, you mean I can't tap my phone? You know, or what can I not do now? And why do I have limitations on that?
Because COVID has accelerated a lot of it. And as I always say, when people say, how do you know that with the chip? And I would say, hey, there's already chips in dogs. And there's a reason why it goes in animals first before it comes to us. So it is coming, and as an organisation, we need to be ready for that. And that is the technology background, how we use the data, how that data is all connected. That probably processing power is there with artificial intelligence, but I don't think we're there with it yet. So I totally agree. It's a cultural bit. That'll be down the road, but COVID has accelerated elements of that. Where it's going to
the
go.
mobile convenience, and that it can skip queues and all the things that they were mentioning. It's like, what can it do for me now, and what will it do in the future is a different story.
And the last thing I would say, we're in sport. I would definitely say nothing beats a live experience.
Absolutely, yeah.
And for me, I'm very passionate about that. So what can we do to improve that live experience and to make it wow?
I will give my final one on this, and I feel inside of your organization, the silos that you have created need to be brought down. And the communication between the different organizations, IT, marketing, partnerships, data and BI, facilities, all of those groups need to start working towards the same goals. And it needs to be this vision that the leadership puts forward. So there needs to be a concerted effort for groups inside of the organization to interact with each other and coordinate the activities so that the IT portion, the technology portion, is working with what marketing's plan is, and that they function together. Frictionless has been a big conversation here, and friction comes from either the lack of technology or too much technology, and finding that right space where it works just right together comes from that effort together. And I feel like from a takeaway perspective, if there's something that people can take away, start working better internally. Communicate better with your groups. When data is presented to you, use it. There's a wealth of information that comes in there. That's the stuff that I would bring.
Yeah, 100%.
I think we're at time on this one. So we want to get everybody a chance to go eat. Does anybody have a quick question or?
Afternoon, guys. My name is Adam. I'm from Forum by Novotel. And Josh ended with too much technology expression.
Yeah.
And I got really two quick questions. First to Geoff and second to Catherine. To Geoff, what's your experience with emerging markets, with, let's say, different continents, learning how to revenue stream generation, all these things, and you really don't have there, as far as my experience says, a background to ask what they really need or what they used to do in the past, because they are building their fan experience, like, let's say, Saudi, you mentioned Qatar. And the second question is to Catherine, basing on this what Josh ended. Do you believe that seats with screens are really, really needed? I mean, in VIP sectors, is it something just over than just good enough? Especially when the people, I think, prefer to have their own devices than they have the screens to deliver, what? That's my question.
Yeah. Do you want? Yeah.
I'll try and go quickly. I'm trying to go through the world here and the different places I've been. So North America, income generation, very advanced, especially in sponsorship and data rights and all of those sorts of areas. South America, it's mainly people-based, ticketing, all of that. They're not just as advanced, but lots of people would go to the games, so it's very much people-based. Africa, extremely limited, and that is a range of reasons why. Probably the most advanced country in Africa would be Rwanda, probably, I would say. But in general, in Africa, I would say that they are definitely the furthest behind in terms of income generation, but yet they've got the most potential. In Europe, it's a bit of a mixed bag between sort of the Eastern Bloc and Western Europe, but I think there's a lot of traditional thinking still in there that needs to be broken down. If I go to Asia, I would say Australia and New Zealand very much leading the field in a whole range of income streams. In the rest of those, so if you go to Myanmar, Vietnam, they're crying out just for help. So it's still very much people-led. It's not that wider technology sponsorship. If you go to the Middle East, it's very much government-led. So government-led investment and let's say that type of activity. The West, probably in Europe, there's a little bit more in government outside of sport. So for example, money in health, education, and that's where sport should be. We shouldn't think sport is sport. Yes, sport is sport, but it benefits health, education, all of those. It's an enabler to allow you to do that. And I think in Europe, a lot of those areas are trying to do that. So to answer your question, the biggest potential would probably be Africa, but it's the biggest nut to crack. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
And then to answer the question, were you talking about screens on seats in the state, like in an airplane, which I haven't actually come across, but I would say if I had to speak personally, I would say it's unnecessary if you're at a live event to have this. I think it's the data about younger audiences, people under 40, they're 85% more likely to use their own second screen, like you mentioned, to interact with friends. So I think it's adding a step which it doesn't have their own social interactions already built into it. So from this perspective, I'd say no. I'd say it's more about enhancing the experience, maybe the visibility in the venue, so that everybody has a good view of the actual either sporting or music event, and then let people interact and share that online, because that'll obviously have a mushroom effect after a fact. So yes, don't invest in that.
Can I chime in on that one real quick?
I hope nobody here is trying to sell screens on the back seat. Sorry.
So where I see the second screen fitting in, not only from expanded experience that you can provide for different angles, views of the play on the pitch or whatever, but also for those with visual impairment. That gives them the capability of actually being able to use their own device, and if you have the capabilities inside of your venue to stream that to their device, that allows them to be present and be able to experience it like the other people. So that second screen where you're utilizing their device, I feel is an extremely important piece for accessibility, because it's something that they already own. It's not a capital expenditure you've got to have, and it can help accentuate what that experience is for them in the venue.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because we work with a group called neurodivergence.com. They're actually an Irish group doing really good work, and recently become aware of a lot of the technology and the tools that can help, such as for non-verbal young people can use, like basically digital tech on your phone to actually communicate with their parents for the first time in their lives, and they can go to an experience and enjoy it and actually be in that position to communicate. So anything that you can do to improve that, it's just important for society, It's less about making money at that level, right? It's about inclusion.
Perfect. Well, I realise now that we're holding your stomachs back from the from lunch. So thank you so much. That was a really
everybody.
great panel session. Thank you, guys. So thank you.